She wore her wedding ring like a mask, and her secrets burned brighter than the family hearth. When lies become oxygen, the truth is a knife. Don't click next. The last 10 seconds decide everything here. The old Victorian house creaked like a tired bone, its oak floors groaning under the weight of everything left unsaid. 10 years of marriage had reduced Lila and me to ghosts haunting the same corridors. We'd moved here after the fire, a fresh start, she'd called it, though her voice trembled when she said it. Her grandmother's house was a tomb of yellowed lace curtains and porcelain dolls frozen in time. Lila hated it. I knew that, but I clung to it like a life raft, desperate to believe we could rebuild what the flames had taken. She stopped wearing her ring first. It scratches the baby during feedings, she'd say, nodding at our daughter, Emily, though the baby was always in my arms when she left. Her phone became a third person in our marriage, glowing in the dark while she typed messages to someone who wasn't me. I told myself it was work. The promotion she'd gotten after the fire required late nights, she said. But promotions don't make you flinch when your husband touches your shoulder. I found it by accident. A leather-bound journal slipped between mattress and bed frame, its pages dog-eared and ink-blurred. Lila's handwriting, once looping and playful, now stabbed the paper. He thinks this house is sanctuary. To me, it's a cage. Every room smells like decay. My throat tightened. Deeper in, a Polaroid fluttered loose. Lila laughing at a bar, a man's hand resting on her knee. His wedding band glinted in the flash. She'd written about him. Marcus doesn't see me as a mother or a wife. Just a woman. It's terrifying. It's freedom. The date stamp was Emily's first birthday. The night Lila had come home at 3 a.m., claiming her car broke down. I believed her. I'd wanted to believe her. Now the truth curdled in my gut. This wasn't a fling. It was a revolt. I waited until midnight, the house holding its breath. She stumbled in, heels dangling from her fingers, the scent of whiskey and cologne clinging to her. Long meeting? I asked, my voice sandpaper rough. She froze, her reflection fragmenting in the hallway mirror. You wouldn't understand, she said, not meeting my eyes. I slid the journal across the kitchen table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Her face paled, then hardened. So, now you know, she hissed. What's your move, Ethan? Beg. Cry. The baby monitor crackled with Emily's whimpers. I stood, my shadow swallowing hers. I'm filing for divorce, I said. But the house stays mine. Her laugh was a knife. You'll lose. You always lose. She vanished upstairs, her footsteps hollow. I stayed, staring at the journal's open page. I used to love him. Now, I love how much he doesn't see. Lawyers smell blood before it's spilled. Margaret Kane, a razor blade of a woman in a tailored suit, flipped through my evidence, the journal, bank statements, timestamps of Lila's absences. Her glasses reflected the cold fluorescence of her office. You'll lose the house, she said, not unkindly. New York favors mothers. Unless, her paws hung like a noose, unless we prove she's unfit. I thought of Emily's laughter, the way Lila sang her to sleep even on nights she reeked of strange cologne. No, I said, not Emily. Margaret's pen tapped the file. Then we dig. Affairs are messy. People get sloppy. She slid a business card across the desk. Private investigator. Discreet. The name was scratched out, replaced by a handwritten M. Marcus worked in finance. A LinkedIn photo showed him grinning beside a Porsche, his wedding band airbrushed into oblivion. The investigator's report called him a habitual risk-taker with a taste for married women. But it was the pawnshop receipt that cut deeper, dated 2 days after Emily's birth. Lila had sold her grandmother's emerald necklace, a family heirloom, for $8,000. For emergencies, she'd told me when I noticed it missing. The pawnbroker remembered her. Cried the whole time, he said. Chewing a toothpick, said she needed cash for a lawyer. A lie. The money had funded weekend trips to Montauk, hotel receipts, wine-stained room service bills. I traced the dates. Emily had colic those nights. I'd rocked her for hours, my phone buzzing with Lila's, working late, don't wait up. I confronted her during a thunderstorm, the house shuddering under the weight of the downpour. She stood at the sink, scrubbing a wine glass until it screamed. "You sold Nana's necklace," I said. Her shoulders stiffened. "You've been spying on me." Not a question, an accusation. The investigator's folder hit the counter. Photos spilled out. Lila and Marcus at a seaside cafe, her hand on his wrist. Hotel keycards. Receipts. She didn't look at them. "You want a war, Ethan? Fine." Her voice dripped venom. "But I'll bury you. That fire, the insurance company still has questions." The air thickened. The fire, the one that destroyed our first home, had been ruled an accident. Faulty wiring. But the way she said it, a sliver of doubt wedged into my ribs. "What do you know about the fire?" I asked. "Too quiet." She smiled, all teeth. "Ask your investigator." Later, in the attic, I found the letter, hidden in a cigar box beneath Christmas decorations. Marcus's handwriting, shaky and desperate. "Lila, I can't keep lying. Tell him the truth about the fire or I will." Postmarked 3 days before the flames. The attic smelled of cedar and secrets. Dust motes swam in the slanted light as I sifted through boxes labeled Christmas, '09, and baby clothes. Marcus's letter burned in my pocket, its words a live wire. "Tell him the truth about the fire or I will." Beneath a stack of Emily's ultrasound photos, I found the insurance report. Cause undetermined, but the adjuster's notes told a different story. Burn patterns inconsistent with electrical fault. Possible accelerant. Lila had been alone that night. I'd been at a conference in Albany, my alibi airtight. But the security footage from the gas station near our old house, time-stamped 11:07 p.m., showed her car idling at a pump. She bought a red plastic canister. Gasoline. Margaret Kane arrived, unannounced, her trench coat dripping onto the porch. "We need to talk," she said, eyeing the report in my hands. Her voice dropped. "The DA's office is reopening the fire case. They found traces of kerosene in the soil samples. The word arson hung between us, jagged and unspoken. I thought of Emily's nursery, the way Lila had rocked her by the window, humming lullabies. She wouldn't, I said, but Margaret's silence was an indictment. She handed me a subpoena. "They'll subpoena you too." Unless her gaze flicked to Marcus's letter. "You have leverage. Use it." That night, I drove to Marcus's address, a penthouse overlooking the Hudson. His wife answered, pregnant and glowing. "He's not here," she said, her smile brittle. Behind her, a toddler's laughter echoed. I left the envelope in her mailbox. Copies of the letter, the gas station receipt, every lie he'd sold her. Lila came unhinged at dawn. "You ruined him," she screamed, hurling Emily's stuffed bear at the wall. Marcus's wife had filed for divorce, taking the kids. The news van circled his office. "You think you've won?" Lila's voice cracked. "That fire was supposed to free us. You were never supposed to come back." The confession hung in the air, rancid. She'd planned it, waited for me to leave, doused the basement, lit a match, but the flames had spread too fast, too hungry. "I wanted insurance money," she whispered, collapsing onto the stairs. "A new life. Not this tomb." I stood over her, the house groaning as if mourning its own complicity. "You could have killed Emily," I said. "Her laugh was a broken thing. She wasn't supposed to be there. You were supposed to take her." The baby monitor crackled. Emily cooed in her crib, oblivious. I picked up the phone, dialed Margaret, and recited the words that would end us all. "I'm ready to testify." The courtroom felt like a cathedral of judgment, its high ceilings swallowing sound and hope. I sat stiffly in the pew-like bench, Emily fidgeting in my lap, her tiny fingers clutching a stuffed rabbit Lila had bought her. The prosecutor's voice droned, "Arson, endangerment, intent." Lila's lawyer countered with words like desperation and trauma, but all I saw was the evidence board. Photos of charred beams, the red gas canister, Marcus's letter. When they called my name, Emily whimpered. The bailiff, a man with kind eyes and a scarred knuckle, took her gently, promising crayons. My footsteps echoed like a death march. Lila didn't look at me. She stared at her hands, manicured and steady, as if they belonged to someone else. The prosecutor handed me the journal. "Read entry 17, he said. Lila's words slithered off the page. "I told Marcus the fire was Ethan's idea, a way to start over. He believed me." The room blurred. Gasps rippled like poison. Margaret had warned me about this. "They'll paint you as complicit," she'd said, drilling me for hours. But hearing Lila's lies in her own handwriting, he wanted the insurance money more than me, felt like swallowing glass. The defense attorney smirked. "Isn't it true, Mr. Carter, that you took out a $2 million policy 3 months before the fire?" I gripped the stand. "To renovate the house. For her." My voice broke. She wanted a studio. For her paintings. The gallery brochure fluttered from the evidence pile. A mock-up of Lila's Modern Tragedies series featuring ash-coated canvases. After the hearing, I found Lila smoking in the parking garage, her silhouette haloed by flickering fluorescence. "You're a better actor than I thought," she said, exhaling venom. All those years playing the dutiful husband, the baby monitor in my pocket crackled with static, Emily's nanny reassuring me she was safe. "Why the paintings?" I asked. She froze. "They were supposed to be ours," she whispered. "The fire, the art, it was all for us." Her voice frayed. "But you clung to that house like a corpse. So I burned it. And when that didn't work, I burned you." A car engine roared. Marcus's Porsche screeched around the corner, his face a mask of fury. Lila dropped the cigarette, grinding it beneath her heel. "He's your problem now," she said, vanishing into the stairwell. Marcus lunged, fists swinging. "You ruined my life." The punch missed. I didn't fight back. Let the cameras see. The grieving husband, the scorned lover. Let the jury decide who played the villain. Later, bloodied but unbroken, I sat in Margaret's office. "We have them," she said, sliding over a subpoena for Marcus's financial records. He paid her. For the paintings, for the lies. The house loomed in the distance as I drove home. Emily slept in the back seat, her breath soft. I parked in the driveway, staring at the for sale sign stabbed into the lawn. For the first time, it felt like freedom. Marcus's financial records arrived in a nondescript manila envelope, its contents smelling faintly of ink and guilt. Spread across my desk, they told a story of desperation. Wire transfers to offshore accounts, shell companies with names like Phoenix Holdings, and a $150,000 payment to Lila-labeled art commission. But it was the line item dated 2 weeks before the fire that froze me. Consulting fee, Carter residence renovation. Margaret's theory solidified like cement. He funded the arson, she'd said, for a cut of the insurance payout. But Lila's journal entries hinted at something darker. Sketches of our burning house filled the margins, captioned purification. She hadn't just wanted money, she'd wanted to erase us. Emily's crayon drawing fluttered to the floor, a stick-figure family under a rainbow. I tucked it into the folder, the paper trembling in my hands. The key arrived anonymously, slipped under the door with a note. "Storage locker 217. Ask for Gloria." The pawnshop's neon sign buzzed like a dying insect. Gloria, a woman with nicotine-stained fingers and a sheriff's badge tattoo, led me to a rusted unit. Inside, canvases wrapped in black cloth, reeking of turpentine and regret. Lila's Modern Tragedies series was a funeral in paint. Our wedding photo, scorched at the edges, Emily's crib melted into abstraction. And the centerpiece, a self-portrait of Lila, her face half consumed by flames, holding a match labeled Marcus. Beneath the frame, a USB drive taped to the stretcher. The files within crackled with surveillance footage, Marcus meeting a man in a firefighter's uniform, exchanging cash. The date. 3 days before the fire. I met Margaret at dawn in a diner that smelled of burnt coffee and bacon grease. She scrolled through the footage, her reflection fractured in the tablet screen. "This puts Marcus at the scene," she said. "But implicating him implicates Lila. And Emily." The word hung between us. A mother in prison. A daughter haunted. The high chair beside our booth still held crumbs from some other child's meal. There's another way, I said, sliding the USB toward her. Leak it anonymously. Let the investigators connect the dots. Margaret's eyes narrowed. You'll lose leverage. And the house. The waitress refilled my coffee, her apron stained with syrup. I thought of Lila's portrait, the flames, the defiance. Some tombs are meant to be abandoned, I said. When the news broke that afternoon, finance exec linked to arson scandal, I sat on the porch swing, Emily curled in my lap. The for sale sign creaked in the wind. She pointed at a passing butterfly, its wings trembling like a secret. Bye-bye, she whispered. I held her tighter. Bye-bye, I agreed. The house sold faster than I expected. A young couple. Writers, they said, drawn to the character of the old Victorian. They didn't ask about the fire, the divorce, or the faint smoke stains still haunting the attic beams. As I packed the last box, a loose floorboard creaked beneath my shoe. Beneath it lay a velvet pouch, its contents cold and familiar. Nana's emerald necklace, pawn ticket still threaded through the clasp. Lila hadn't sold it after all. The receipt's date, October 12th, matched Emily's birth. I traced the pawnbroker's scribbled note. Held per request for her daughter. The necklace glinted, a green eye winking in the dust-muted light. She'd planned to retrieve it. She'd planned to leave something behind. The storage locker was empty, save for one painting leaned against the back wall. Gloria handed me the key with a shrug. Lady came last night. Cried like a widow. The canvas was wrapped in butcher paper, Lila's handwriting bleeding through. For Emily, when she's old enough. I unwrapped it in the parking lot, the Hudson wind biting my cheeks. A portrait of Emily, not as she was, but as Lila had imagined her. Teenaged, fierce, her hair wild and streaked with paint. In the corner, a tiny self-portrait. Lila as a shadow, her hand brushing Emily's shoulder. The date. The night before the fire. A business card fluttered out. Dr. Rosa Voles, psychiatrist, the first session circled in red. Patient. Lila Carter, diagnosis. PTSD, treatment. EMDR. I found her on the Brooklyn Bridge, her silhouette swallowed by the winter fog. She didn't turn. I knew you'd come, she said, her voice frayed. You always did love closure. The necklace dangled between us, catching the gray light. For Emily, I said. She flinched. I wanted her to have something real, not just ashes. Her breath crystallized. I try to hate you, but I just hated myself louder. A fairy horn groaned below. I set the painting against the railing. She'll want to know you. Eventually. Lila's laugh was a brittle thing. Tell her I was brave, even if it's a lie. When she walked away, her footsteps faded into the mist. I stayed until the streetlights flickered on, the painting propped like a grave marker. That night, I hung it in Emily's new room. She pointed at the shadow figure, giggling. Mama! I kissed her forehead. A ghost, I said, but not ours. 15 years, folded into the quiet rhythms of pancakes on Sundays and parent-teacher conferences. Emily, now 16, inherited Lila's sharp cheekbones and my stubborn silence. She found the painting in the attic, its edges frayed but colors still violent. Who is she? She asked, tracing the shadow figure. I lied smoothly, an old friend. But the necklace betrayed me. She discovered it tucked in my desk, the pawn ticket fluttering loose like a confession. Her eyes, Lila's eyes, narrowed. You kept secrets, she said, not a question. That night I drove to the old Victorian. The writers had painted it slate gray, replaced the lace curtains with clean linen. A toddler's tricycle lay overturned on the lawn. I parked down the block, watching smoke curl from the chimney. Fire, domesticated. The new owners let me dig up the rose bush. It never bloomed, the wife sighed. My shovel struck metal, a rusted lockbox buried by Lila. Inside, a water-stained letter. Ethan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Not dead, just gone. The fire was my scream. You weren't supposed to hear it. Tell Emily I loved her in the only way I could, by leaving. Burn this, or don't. I'm past caring. The paper trembled, not from wind, but the weight of a truth too late. I buried the box deeper, leaving the letter to rot with the roots. Emily found me in the backyard, the grill spitting embers. She held the painting. Tell me, she said. I fed her lies first. Your mother was trouble, but she tried. Then, piece by piece, the truth. The journal, the arson, Marcus's hollow promises. She listened, her face a mirror of Lila's defiance. You should have told me, she said, but her voice lacked venom. We burned the pawn ticket, its flames licking the dusk. The necklace, though, she clasped around her throat. I'll keep this, she said, to remember how not to love. Later, I found Dr. Valles's card in the ashes. The number half scorched. I dialed anyway. Voicemail. This is Rosa. Leave a ghost. I hung up. Emily's light stayed on past midnight, her shadow bending over the painting. I didn't knock. Some doors open inward. Emily's obsession fossilized into routine. After school, she'd vanish into the library, scouring microfiche for Lila's name. I tracked her via credit card statements, coffee shops, thrift stores, a bus ticket to Montauk. She left a trail of breadcrumbs, daring me to follow. In her room, the painting hung askew, Lila's shadow figure now defaced with Emily's red Sharpie. Who are you? I found the answer in her closet. A box labeled camp supplies held maps, Lila's old scarf, and a locket I'd never seen, engraved to L from M. Inside, a tiny key taped to a slip of paper. Storage 322, Pier 17. That night I dreamed of fire, not our house burning, but Emily's laughter swallowed by flames. Pier 17 sagged under the weight of rotting wood and salt-bleached memories. Storage 322 was a coffin-sized unit, its padlock rusted shut. Emily's key clicked. Inside, stacked canvases, their backs marked property of Lila Carter. Not her tortured abstracts, these were softer. A pregnant Lila, bathed in golden light. Me, asleep on the porch swing, Emily in my arms. A family portrait we'd never posed for. Beneath them, a shoebox of letters, not to Marcus, to me, unsent. Ethan, I painted us happy tonight. You'd hate it. Too sentimental. But God, I wish it were real. The last letter, dated the day before the fire. I'm going to tell him. About the baby. Our second chance. Meet me at the house. Please. A bottle of prenatal vitamins rolled from the box, prescription label faded. Dr. Rosa Valles. Patient. Ethan Carter. Confrontation came in a thunderstorm. Emily stood in the driveway, the letters clutched to her chest, rain sluicing off Lila's scarf. You knew, she hissed. About the baby. My baby. The truth was a grenade I'd swallowed for decades. Lila's second pregnancy, a secret she'd kept until the night of the fire. A miscarriage in the ER, me still in Albany. She didn't want you to blame yourself. I said, the lie, ash on my tongue. Emily's laugh was a blade. You mean you didn't want to blame her? She thrust the vitamins at me. These were yours. Dr. Valles treated you. For what? Guilt. Lightning fractured the sky. In the flash, I saw Lila's face, not angry, but terrified. The truth wasn't hers alone to carry. Depression, I said, after the fire, after losing the baby. Emily stepped back, the rain erasing her tears. You let me hate her. I let you survive, I said, but the storm stole my words. She left at dawn, the letters and locket stuffed into her backpack. I didn't stop her. Some silences are too heavy to lift alone. Emily stood at the edge of the Victorian's driveway, the slate-gray paint now peeling to reveal hints of its original crimson beneath. The writer's toddler raced past, chasing a golden retriever, their laughter echoing like a ghost from a life she might have had. The wife waved from the porch, mistaking her for a lost delivery girl. Emily didn't correct her. Inside, the renovations had erased Lila's fingerprints, open-concept kitchens, minimalist art, but the attic remained untouched. Dust motes swirled in the slanted light, as Emily knelt by the loose floorboard. Beneath it, a final canvas. Lila's self-portrait, pregnant and radiant, her hand resting on a crib that never held a child. On the back, a scroll, "For the daughter who survived." The necklace burned against Emily's throat. She left the painting leaning against the attic window, its face turned toward the sun. Ethan found himself at the Hudson, the water oily under the bruised twilight. In his pocket, the scorched prenatal vitamins clinked like broken bells. He'd kept one pill, a tiny tombstone. The riverbank whispered with Lila's absence. Here, they'd scattered her ashes in secret. Emily told it was birdseed. A flicker of movement. Emily's silhouette on the bridge, her hair whipping like a wildfire. He climbed the steps, each creak a question. She didn't turn, her grip tightening on the railing. Below, the water churned, swallowing the last light. He set the pill beside her. "I thought it would hurt less," he said. "Letting you hate her." She palmed the pill, her thumb tracing its fissures. "I don't hate her," she said. "I hate that you made her a ghost." The wind stole the words, but the truth lingered, a third shadow between them. They met at dawn in the old storage locker, now emptied of art, but heavy with echoes. Emily carried a cardboard box. Lila's letters, the locket, the pill. Ethan held a matchbook from the diner where he'd first hired Margaret. The flames were smaller than expected. Paper curled into black petals, smoke stinging their eyes. Emily hesitated before tossing in the necklace. "Not everything," she said, clutching the pawn ticket. "Just enough." When the fire died, she sifted the ashes, slipping a handful into the locket. Ethan kept the key to storage 322, relic, not a burden. They parted without promises. Emily boarded a bus to Montauk, the locket cold against her skin. Ethan drove past the Victorian one last time. The toddler waved, her hand sticky with jam. He waved back, the pill bottle, now empty in his glove box. Years later, Emily's postcard arrived, a watercolor of the bridge at dawn, the Hudson smoothed to glass. On the back, 3 words. "I'm still painting." He framed it beside Lila's portrait, the 2 faces separated by glass but fused by light. One story may be ending, but the excitement never stops. Don't wait, jump right into the next one and keep the thrill alive.